My name is Megan, and I have to say, being on the funding side of the table is still something I think I'm getting used to. I'm much more accustomed to being sort of in Jason's seat, which is the person trying to go do creative projects and figure out how to raise money to do them. But nonetheless, for the past couple years, I've been employed by the Hale Foundation here in Cincinnati, so I think it's safe to say I've made the leap to the other side. So that line of work in 2012 brought me here to Cincinnati, and that was to work alongside this fella in the bow tie, he's probably in a bow tie today, Eric Avner, for a foundation called the Hale Foundation, the Carol Ann and Ralph V. Hale Foundation, to be more specific. That's Carol and Ralph on the screen there. And the Hale Foundation at that point had been around for, Eric, where are you, 4 years maybe? And is pretty unique in that I think the way that they approach their grant making, the way they think about philanthropy is a bit different. And when I came alongside the foundation and was introduced to the work that Eric was thinking about and doing, one of the things that I thought was really fascinating was that in addition to responding to the needs of the community and responding to the requests of nonprofits for funding, Eric and the foundation was really proactive in going out and thinking about how they as a foundation could develop projects and programs to respond to those needs, which is very different than the way a lot of foundations operate. And so the project that I'm going to talk about in the 3 minutes that I have is a project called Cosign. Cosign in a nutshell was an initiative that paired local business owners with artists and designers and expert sign makers and sign fabricators to install a critical mass of new storefront signage in business communities, in business districts. So why signs? Why would we be thinking about signage with all of the issues in our world? So a couple reasons. Signs, in one way, create a really distinct sense of place. If you think about maybe Beale Street in Memphis, among other places, signage can be a really unique identifier of a place. It can be the sort of memorable thing that makes you remember a place and actually can make it a destination. So we thought there was something to that by way of driving some economic and community development. We have, like any city, a host of just really, really great creative talent here. And I think we were really interested in thinking about how could we introduce some of those artists and designers to not necessarily just new ways to get involved in their community, but also new skill sets. The art of making signs and sign painting and typography, that's all really, really, that's a craft. How could we sort of expose new designers, young emerging talent to that art and to that craft? And then if you're from Cincinnati, you know that we have a gem of an institution here in the American Sign Museum. If you're not from Cincinnati and you have some extra time, I highly recommend going and checking it out. Phenomenal organization, preserving the history and heritage of signage, and the foundation was really looking for some new ways. They were just really excited about the foundation's mission and looking for some new ways to partner with the Sign Museum and develop some unique programming. So that's why signs. So how did we develop Cosign? What was it? What did it do? I'm just going to take a few minutes here and walk through that process. So the first thing that we wanted to do, that we knew that we needed to do, was identify geographically where could we start to test this idea, where could we prototype this project. Cosign has happened 3 times in 2 different communities. The first one happened in a neighborhood called Northside. The third, we did that twice in Northside, and then across the river in Covington. But these 2 communities where Cosign took place had some really, I think, similar characteristics. Both are really unique and sort of eclectic neighborhoods. Both have really strong business associations. There's something about sort of the geography, so sort of a density or critical mass of really unique retail and businesses. That was really important to what Cosign was trying to achieve. And then I think thirdly, and 1 minute, holy cow. Thirdly, both are communities that are, I think open to new ideas and open to trying things. And I think that's a really important piece that we can't overlook. Okay, so I'm not going to run through this specifically, but we knew to kick this off and to do it well, we needed to build our roadmap and build a process. We had a pretty ambitious timeline for this project. We wanted to go from opening the call for entries to actually installing the signs in 6 months, which a lot of people thought was ridiculous and that we couldn't do. But we knew to do that we needed to really, really spend a lot of our energy in the beginning designing the roadmap and really helping all of the players who were going to be a part of this, the businesses, the artists, and the sign makers, where they fit in along that path, so that they knew, we could keep things going and keep things moving. So the first thing we did to kick this off is we put a call out to artists and designers, and we put a call out to business owners in Northside that basically said, here's what we're doing, here's the project, it's a prototype, do you want to play, do you want to try this along with us? We relied on some great partners in the community of Northside. I think Jenny's here. Jenny was actually one of our original kind of community ambassadors, knocking on doors and encouraging businesses to apply for this or to participate in it. We sent a call out to artists and designers as well. If you wanted to participate in CoSign, you needed to come to one of 2 mandatory workshops. This is actually at the American Sign Museum. And the idea here was a couple things we needed to achieve during those workshops. One was really to explain, obviously what we were doing and what the project entailed. We did some just education about the value of signage and what makes a good sign, and just really explain the process. And at that workshop, so we had interest from altogether in all 3 communities, about 45 businesses, and about 150 creatives who engaged in the process. During that workshop, we also revealed the businesses that had elected to participate. So if you were an artist or a designer coming to that workshop and saying, okay, I'd like to participate in this process, you could find out that night who the businesses were in the communities that you could, that were interested in a sign, and you could go home and just start to sketch and dream a little bit. So at the workshop, we revealed the businesses. Artists and designers had basically 2 weeks, which is another thing people said, artists and designers, they're so slow, that will never work. They had 2 weeks to go turn around sketches, designs, ideas for the signs for each business that they wanted to do a sign for. And altogether in that 2-week time, we received 144 designs from 21 businesses from 52 different artists. Once we had collected all of the designs, we went around to the respective businesses and showed them what came in. Here are the sign proposals that designers have created for you. And at that point, it was up to the business owner to choose the design, the sign that they thought best represented their business. At that point, we then sort of entered the designer and the artist, or the business owner and the artist into sort of a marriage. We held these sort of rapid prototyping workshops, we called them, where the designers and the business owners got together, refined some of the ideas. I think I saw Chris here earlier, Chris Glass, who's now a Hale Fellow, was one of the designers as well. And so the point of that sort of rapid prototyping workshop was not only to get the artists and the business owners connected and reshaping and refining the ideas, but also to introduce those teams to some experts who could really help bring the ideas to life. So we had on hand an architect. I think Jim Guthrie is here, was our architect expert. All the experts had on t-shirts that said expert. We had someone, so Northside is a historic district as well, so we had the added complication of historical considerations that we needed to think about when doing signage. So we had someone there who could speak to that, who could speak to zoning, who could speak to we had a structural engineer who could literally say, that sign is not going to hang on a building, it's too big, it doesn't, so all of these experts were on hand that night to offer insight, offer feedback, help refine the designs, and actually get them ready to go into production. The teams then had 1 week to turn around a final design, which had specs and specifications for sizing and all of those things, materials. And then we entered into a jury process. So we've said from the beginning just 10 signs were going to get created. So we put together an expert jury, judged the final proposals, and selected 10 winners. Each winner, so each designer who was selected, received $1,000 for the design of their sign. And then those the business owners who were getting a sign, each had to pay $500 towards the production of that sign. And that could be cash or gift certificate. So the idea that the business would still stay in the community. We then had one architect, again, I think Jim, to turn all of the proposals into sort of one standard document, one template that could be given to the city for permitting. Important to mention here, so we got all of our permits in one day, 10 sign permits in one day, which is silly. But the idea there was we engaged the city the entire way. They knew what the project was. We were working with them to sort of say, okay, what do we need by way of specifications for each design, so that when we were ready to go and get those permits, we could bring in those templates, and we achieved that in one day, which we thought was a pretty outstanding feat. Then it was time for production. 6 weeks, the sign fabricators had to produce the signs, and then we celebrated. So this is back at the Sign Museum. Before the signs were installed on the buildings, we had a day, an evening where we displayed all the signs and just celebrated everyone for their hard work. So this first process was run in 2012. So on Black Friday, we celebrated in the community with a parade. Each business owner got to go up in a bucket truck and take a big wrap off their sign and celebrate. And here's just a few examples of some of those signs from Northside. And then we ran the process over across the river again in Covington. There's some of those signs as well. Okay, I know I'm out of time, but just wanted to end with a few things. So why does cosign matter? Why was this project, why is it even worth talking about? And I think there's a couple reasons. From a funder's perspective, I think what cosign demonstrates is it's really a sort of model, a unique way of really converging and mixing people that might not otherwise mix. It's a way to sort of bring people together, I think, in a unique way in a design process. And just some stats there about the number of people who participated. I also think it was a really interesting way to engage the city in a process, a placemaking process that the city might not have otherwise been attuned to, and to do so in such a way that we could sort of work with them and not necessarily against them to get something done in a community. I think another reason why this matters is that for Cincinnati and for the Hale Foundation, which is all the funding is here in the region, all the dollars stay local, we were able to sort of demonstrate that we could do a project of this scale and sort of do a prototype run with an initial investment. And then that attracted some national funding. So the Hale Foundation funded the first run of cosign, which was a $150,000 investment. And then the second and third rounds of cosign, as well as what's happening now, which is a 5-city national rollout, NEA, Art Place is supporting. I'm almost done, I'm getting the sign. Okay, and I think from a community perspective, why does cosign matter? I think there's some obvious reasons there. Bringing some sort of pride and momentum into the community, into the neighborhood, making these areas distinct and giving them a sort of unique, vibrant identity is really important. Business perspective, I think increased traffic, increased sales, visibility of a place. And then I think, again, for the creative perspective, and this will be a good segue into Jason, I think, introducing the creative community to new ways to connect to their city, new opportunities to use their skills to do something really big and important in neighborhoods. I think that was another big outcome. And then finally, I'll end with just, I think, what cosign also demonstrated, so again, this was in 2012, this was the Hale Foundation's first sort of foray into thinking about how people-focused investment could really impact a community and impact a place. And I think it demonstrated that philanthropy really can have a profound impact on individuals, not just organizations. And what Eric's going to speak about at lunch, I think will tie into this nicely, what we're doing now with People's Liberty. But I do believe cosign was sort of that first inkling that we could really think about philanthropy differently. I think I'll end there and send it over to Jason. So thank you very much.